He stood at the counter of a small-town bakery, wearing a suit that probably cost more than the entire shop's monthly rent. The scent of freshly baked bread and sugar hung in the air as he reached for his platinum card, engraved, flawless, and a symbol of his power. But when the cashier ran it through the machine, a shrill beep echoed. "Card declined," she said softly. He frowned, confident it was a mistake. But after 3 attempts, the result was the same. Behind him, people began to whisper. For a man who once ruled boardrooms and bent markets with a single decision, it was a moment of pure humiliation. And just as his world tilted, a small voice broke through the silence. A little girl offering him her last few coins. Before we continue this story of pride, loss, and redemption, take a moment to support Ripple Tales. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us spread more stories that touch the heart. Michael Hayes was once the kind of man headlines called untouchable. A billionaire investor, a genius of numbers and strategy, the kind of person who believed he could control destiny itself. Money had been his language, power his comfort. He owned private jets, beachfront villas, and companies spread across continents. But beneath that success lay a heart hardened by pride. He'd built walls around himself so high that even his family's love couldn't climb them anymore. His marriage had crumbled under the weight of his arrogance. His son no longer called, and his laughter had long disappeared behind polished boardroom doors. Then came the fall, slow at first, then all at once. A single bad decision, a dishonest partner, and a financial storm swept through his empire. In less than a year, his fortune evaporated like dust in the wind. His name became a cautionary tale. His company declared bankrupt, and the world that once applauded him turned its back. The irony was cruel. The man who once signed billion-dollar checks now counted every dollar left in his wallet. He left the city soon after, too proud to face the pitying looks. He drove for hours until he reached a small, quiet town far from the noise of his past. That's where he found the little bakery. Martha's Hearth, a humble place with wooden chairs, yellow curtains, and the warmth of something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. He ordered a coffee and a piece of bread, trying to ignore the stares. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes tired, but something inside him still clung to the identity of a man who used to own the world. When the cashier asked for payment and his card failed, a silence fell that burned through his pride. He could have explained, could have begged them to try again, but all he could do was stand there, numb. And then came the voice, soft, high-pitched, and pure. A little girl, no more than 7, holding a crumpled dollar bill and a handful of coins. She walked up to the counter and stretched her hand toward the cashier. "He can have my money," she said. "He looks hungry." Michael froze. For a man who once donated millions to charity just for tax breaks, this simple act pierced his heart like nothing ever had. The girl's clothes were old, her shoes a little torn, but her smile was bright, the kind of smile that expected nothing in return. He wanted to refuse, to tell her it wasn't necessary, but the words wouldn't come. He simply nodded, and the cashier, moved by the moment, accepted the small payment. When Michael sat down again, the coffee tasted different. It wasn't the drink, as it was him. He watched the little girl return to a corner table where her mother, a tired woman with kind eyes, smiled proudly. They shared a single muffin, taking turns as if it were a feast. He felt his throat tighten. For the first time in years, he realized what wealth really looked like. Not in money, but in love, generosity, and contentment. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He sat in his small rented room above the town's library, staring out the window at the quiet streets. The little girl's face wouldn't leave his mind. Her innocence, her uncalculated kindness, it shook him to his core. The next morning, he returned to the bakery, not to repay the dollar, but to understand. He learned her name was Lily. Her mother, Anna, worked double shifts at a laundromat to make ends meet. They lived in a small apartment near the edge of town. But despite their struggles, they were warm, hopeful people. Michael began visiting the bakery daily. Sometimes he'd just sit, sometimes he'd help sweep the floor, sometimes he'd read stories to Lily while her mother worked. The townspeople found it strange at first, the Mysterious man who once wore designer. Suits now helping carry flour sacks. But slowly they grew fond of him. There was a calmness in him now, a humility that softened his sharp edges. Weeks turned into months. Michael found purpose again, not in profit but in people. He started helping out at a local shelter, using what little savings he had to fix the roof. He taught small business owners how to manage their finances, not for gain, but to give them the tools he wished he had valued before. And every day he visited Lily and Anna, bringing bread, stories, and laughter. But one cold evening, everything changed again. The bakery caught fire, an accident caused by a short circuit. Flames devoured the small building and panic filled the street. By the time firefighters arrived, the bakery was gone. Anna was devastated, holding Lily close as she watched the dream she had built crumble. Michael, covered in soot from trying to help, stood beside them with tears in his eyes. It felt like losing something precious all over again. Yet out of that loss came something extraordinary. Michael refused to let their story end in ashes. Using his connections, he reached out to former business partners, not for himself but for them. He spoke with sincerity that came not from pride, but from compassion. Within weeks, he gathered enough donations to rebuild the bakery. Bigger, safer, brighter. He called it Lily's Hearth, naming it after the girl who had reignited his humanity. When it reopened, people from all over the town gathered, and Anna cried as she hugged him, whispering that he'd given them more than a business. He'd given them hope. Michael stayed in that town for years, never returning to his old empire. But news spread about the once billionaire who lost everything and found himself again in a small-town bakery. One day, a journalist arrived to write his story, and when asked how it all began, he smiled and said, "With a little girl and a dollar that was worth more than all my millions." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to believe in goodness again, and subscribe to Ripple Tales. Every small act of kindness can change a life, sometimes even save one. And before you go, tell us in the comments below, what's the smallest act of kindness that ever made the biggest difference in your life?